What's up, YouTube? Eugene here. So good to see you. Today, we're going to be talking about Mitsouko, and it is the spirit guides that inspired me to do this. I enjoyed it so much, and the guides were just like, yo, dude, you love this? Just talk about it. That's all you got to do is talk about it. And why not? It took me about 10 minutes to pick out a scent of the day this morning. And I was just kind of like flipping through scents, and then it was that thought process of, okay, what do you truly love to wear? What are the things that you love to wear? Go back to, your favorites. And then Bella Despido came to mind, Cuir de Russie, which I wore yesterday, Vol de Nuit, and then, Mitsouko. And I was just like, yeah, that's it. We're going with Mitsouko. So I had the pleasure of spending the day with Mitsouko, which was gratifying as always, one of my favorite perfumes of all time. But before we get into Mitsouko, give me a moment to make this announcement. I do have my own line of perfumes for those of you that are unaware, and they are available at lesabstrait.com. There are 3 releases so far. There is La Doulette Exquise, which is a rose patchouli, very spicy, woody, bewitching rose patchouli, which is quite dry, incensey, resinous, and ambery. Bellum is an iris powdery perfume, kind of smells like a chocolate bar, very uplifting, musky, warm, cozy. It's complex and deep and powdery as well. And Descendre, which is a dry, woody, smoky, spicy, animalic, a forest accord. I love my piney perfumes. So these are all available at lesabstrait.com. Thank you so much to everybody that supported these. Y'all have been fabulous. So for those of you that are curious about my line, they're available at lesabstrait.com. So, and I'll link that down below. But anyway, back to Mitsouko. This is, clearly a very favorite perfume of mine, and it's very different than perfumes of today. This is a perfume that is about 100 years old. It was created with different intention than the perfumes that are made today that you will smell at the department store counter. Stuff today is made to be clean, fresh, inoffensive, very likable, very approachable by as many people as possible. And this is kind of like the contrast to all that. The contra. It is so different. There's nothing actually really appealing here to somebody that is looking for that sort of cleanliness or soapiness or just likability. This to me is very musty. It's old. It's dated. It feels like it's from not one generation ago, like many generations ago. It is, but it's also timeless to me. And this is the sort of thing that I now look for in perfume. This is the sort of thing that excites me in a perfume, because it gets my mind going, it gets my emotions going, and then it kind of links them up together, and there's this kind of fabulous back and forth going on. And I think the reason behind that is the smell of this. What I'm actually smelling triggers like some sort of primitive part of my brain that I don't get to use very often, or I'm not familiar with. And, that does this, and that opens something up inside of me, some sort of, thoughts, emotions, feelings, and then I ponder on the story of this perfume, the narrative, which is Mitsouko, who was a Japanese woman married to a naval officer who was headed out to war, and it was her, just sitting around waiting for her husband to come home. But not only that, she had a love affair with another soldier. I think it was a German soldier during the war. And while they were off to war, she was home contemplating, about her lovers. It was a long 2 years that she got to spend alone. And I guess that's sort of what triggers the feelings inside of me. This is very contemplative. I love contemplative perfumes, perfumes that take me far away and give me something to lean into and perhaps discover not only something new in the perfume, but new about myself, within myself. And this has that feeling of a deep contemplation of, there is, I smell this perfume, and I definitely have, I almost have like a picture created for it, like a landscape, a narrative. I have created this image of in my head of what this smells like. And then I put myself inside of that image of a forest. There's lots of trees. There is swaying grass in the wind. There is the fresh air. There is darkness. There's a barnyard there, very rotting wood. I see lots of rotting wood, old wood that spent many, many, many years outside just decaying. I feel like I'm in that space, and I am contemplating the memory of my lovers off to war, or Mitsuko. I'm imagining Mitsuko contemplating her lovers off to war. So what creates that image for me? Well, let's look at the notes. The notes in here are, and this is very deep, and this is it's beyond complex. Every time I smell this, I feel like I'm smelling something different or new from the last inhale of breath, and that really speaks to the complexity of this. So it is classified as a fruity chypre, which I would agree with. One of the first chypres, or they're claiming for it to be one of the first chypres with a peach note or a fruity note. Peach is very, very prominent in this perfume, so I get peach, florals, a lot of freshness, cold. It's a very cold perfume, and that's very strange because I always imagine I love warm perfumes with heavy ambers and smoky notes and patchoulis and all that. Just like fiery, spicy notes. And this is like completely opposite of that. This is very fresh and cold and outdoorsy, slightly foresty. And a lot of that is coming from, the use of notes here. The bergamot, the lemon are very fresh and cold. The anise is cold, which adds, a beautiful touch of spice. There's oak moss, right, which is, I imagine, another cold note, and adds, oak moss to me. If you've ever smelled oak moss out in the forest, there is a huge element of coolness that comes from oak moss. If you've been out in the forest during a hot day and you find yourself underneath trees, there's a feeling of freshness, of not quite mentholated, but it does cut the air the same way mint does. It's sort of breezy and leaves this cooling effect on me. The oak moss does, on my nose, on my skin. It feels refreshing. So there's a lot of cold elements to this, but there's also warm elements. There, I guess the jasmine in here would be cold as well. It has a huge floral accord, very musty. It smells very musty and old. And I imagine the must is coming from the florals. There's also musks, animal musks. There might be some civet in here. And it's all dosed very, I don't want to say minimal, but nothing is really pushed to the max here. The balance of this is, it's complete perfection, because there's times where I feel like I'm smelling something and then it quickly disappears. It disappears before I can actually put a reference to the actual scent. So then I have to do it more so in the memory that I've created of what I'm smelling than what I'm actually smelling in that moment, because it is changing quite quickly. And before I can, make an assumption or kind of create this vision of what it is I'm smelling, it's already shifted into something different quicker than I can kind of perceive it. So that also kind of keeps me on my toes. It keeps me engaged with the perfume. It's almost like reading a book, or just kind of going into it. But yeah, it's got that musty floral accord. I get predominantly jasmine. I don't get a whole lot of iris. I get jasmine, violets, narcissus, a little bit of rose, but nothing really stands out. I think it's the violet in here that gives it the darkness, but it's not that sweet, fruity Parma violet. It's much darker. It's more like a mushy, musty, decaying, cold violet note. Very dark. Even combined with the leather in here, there's a big slug of that IBQ leather, which, on its own, I really struggle with. IBQ is a harsh, isobutyl quinoline is a harsh leather ingredient. On its own, it's very harsh. I've just recently smelled Knise 10 for the first time, and within the first few minutes, I loved what I was smelling. But as I kept an eye on it, a lot of those green, fresher notes started to disappear, leaving just IBQ. And I was like, oh boy, this is like straight up IBQ is quite harsh and dense and thick and slightly bitter. It's not an easy note or ingredient to love, I guess. I don't think they use a whole lot of IBQ in today's designer fragrances. You'll be lucky if they do, because it's just a classic component to leathery perfumes from the past. And those perfumes, they definitely don't have they don't have a big foot in today's market. So I can't picture them using those in a lot of designer fragrances. But yeah, I get a lot of darkness from the leather in here. It almost feels like dark skies, nighttime. The use of leather in here. I love the use of this leather in here. It's to me it's slightly similar to Cuir de Rizu. And there's also this horsey aspect, this barnyardy aspect. I picture a leather saddle. I picture horse hair. I picture petting a horse. I picture horse feet, manure, just kind of like trancing along in manure. There's slight aspects of that which kind of work together with the mustiness. So there is a lot here. There's a lot going on. Labdanum, the patchouli. It just adds more darkness and mystery. A very mysterious perfume. Green, grassy, wet, mossy, leathery, fruity. And it all leaves me in this space of contemplation, this space of, it feels like I've been there before at some time, kind of wanting, needing, wishing, reminiscing, being in deep thought, memory, in this place of this forest, of this field of, trees, of dirt, of cabins, of cottages, of houses, of old rotting wood. It's just a whole lot of old world to this perfume. I think that's why I'm drawn to it. I love the use of florals. I don't necessarily get the Guerlain in Mitsouko. And I am talking about I am talking about the Eau de Parfum. This is the Eau de Parfum concentration, which I'm talking about. This is my favorite concentration. I don't get the typical, I don't want to say the Guerlain Knot is typical. It's different in every Guerlain fragrance, but it is familiar. And I think it's because it's missing the iris in here. There's a little bit of ylang, you know, it's all really relatively, it's balanced brilliantly where nothing really sticks out outside of that jasmine. But yeah, just absolutely brilliant. This is my favorite. I've got a bunch of these. I've got the Eau de Toilettes, which I prefer more in the summertime. It's a little bit lighter. It's more fruitier, and that fruit really cuts good in the heat, giving some freshness. I've got a vintage Eau de Toilette as well in these beautiful canisters. I have the Pure Parfum, which is not my favorite. It's not my favorite. It's a little bit softer, but yeah, I do love this. And of course, you know, we got to mention Diaghilev. Diaghilev is often compared and mentioned, and I love Diaghilev as well. Diaghilev is a little bit different to me. It's not you know, one-to-one. It's brilliant in its own way, but my heart, you know, it really belongs to this version of Mitsouko and the story that it tells and the way that it unfolds, the way it makes me feel, and that more than anything is the way that it makes me feel and the emotions that it pulls out of me, which not many other perfumes do in the way that this does. So, and that's probably the reason this is one of my all-time favorites, along with, you know, something like Cuir de Russie. They're both very, very, very familiar perfumes, released just a couple of years apart from each other, right? And they really do the same thing. Like, if I'm totally honest, they do a lot of similar things. Green, grassy, leathery, floral, and cold. There's something really cold and austere about these. And they just hit the primitive mind, you know? It's like I found an old friend that I never knew I had. That's what it feels like. Anyway, you know, that's Mitsouko. I know I've talked about Mitsouko a lot over the years. A lot, and this is definitely not going to be the last time. You know, it always comes up in the live streams, and I look forward to wearing it, you know, and just kind of discussing it some more with you guys. So there you go. Like the video, drop a comment down below, let us know what you think of Mitsouko. Whatever you want to say. What does Mitsouko mean to you? Is it overrated? Not everybody likes it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. I've had people say, I blind bought Mitsouko off of your referral and I did not like it. And then they'd come back, you know, a couple weeks later saying, oh my God, I love Mitsouko. And I love hearing that. So thank you very much. Anyway, guys, check out Mitsouko. Check out Les Ups today while you're still here. And leave a like, drop a comment. We'll see you very soon. Bye, everybody.